This is going to be a initial setup guide and brief how to use MagicEF scaffolding, and I'm assuming you already know why you want to use this. There's other videos talking about exactly how to use more commands with it, the capabilities, best practices, and read the wiki. So I'm assuming if you're here, you know why. And the first thing we need to start with is make sure you make your C# class library. We do want to separate our where we're going to be doing this. And make sure you also check out the wiki for any changes or updates, but I created this in a way that it's going to be quite automated. I am not going to walk through the manual process, read the wiki for that, especially because that might change, so I'm not making a video on that, but the automated process we're going to walk through, and this should be quite quick because it's going to do everything for you. So first of all, on the wiki, there is this scaffold script example. I would suggest you download it, and it's going to make your life a lot easier. Make sure you place this in the project directory. So as you can see, I actually already set mine up right here. The only things you need to set up is these 4 variables. So, your connection string, be safe with how you place that, please. Don't write a full connection string there. I'm using AD authentication, for example, so I don't care. Put the project file name here, right? And we need to have that extension. And the project namespace, I want to write that. So for me, it was example data access, because I just left that the same. So it was example data access, and I wrote that again here because that was the same project file name. The DB context name, that's going to give the class of the context file that you're going to create. And, it's going to separate the read-only version from your version. So we're definitely going to need to choose one. I would suggest choosing something that's more relevant to your database. Once you change these 4 things, just make sure you have .NET set up. That way you can run .NET commands. That's really all you need to set up before you start this process. And I use PowerShell for this, so you're going to need to make sure you enable PowerShell. But if you're watching this, I'm assuming you can figure that out. So I ended up opening a command line. I opened it up in the actual base path of where the project lies. That I wrote the script to work like that because it was easier for me to set up my scripts and make them easy. This is just the example script with my stuff written into it. And I'm going to be scaffolding my company's reporting database because there's not much on it right now. It's quite new, but this is a new class library. It's net 8 that I'm doing this on. MagicEF is always going to separate what is read-only and what is not. It'll check if certain things were created for the first time, but it does not overwrite anything that you've done. Now that we have the script set up, it's going to do everything for you. So it's going to create the protocol with the folder names, and if you saw in the example script as well, you can change that. I don't suggest it. You should definitely keep that as is. I only left it as an example. If you want to alter it, I left that advanced capability. That would majorly be for more enterprise, large projects that have more separation of concern. Here's what this protocol actually built for us. We have our concrete DB helpers, DB models, extensions, interfaces, and metadata. We'll go more into that, I guess, in a different video. But I named mine my DB context for this example. And you do got to remember, you need to put in your own logic for how you get the connection string. So whether it's through an environment variable or, Azure's Key Vault, I don't care, it's up to you. But obviously it doesn't know that, nor does it use the connection string used to scaffold. So I didn't want to do that because that's up to you and how you want to code it. But once you set that up, just like how MagicEF is supposed to work, now that this is done, I can actually go, so I've set up a test CLI right here, and I have a couple models. So on the reporting database, you can see there's not many. I have a queue and a detailed audit. And I can type in new detailed audit. And so first of all, you can actually already see it connects immediately. I didn't have to do anything. Connects immediately to our model. It scaffolded it properly. If I want to, add anything to that extension, I can go to the extensions, detailed audit, and, I can change in code. It doesn't matter. And it's going to change stuff, and I can do whatever. We have the metadata override interfaces that all automatically hooked up. In the concrete, just so you know, the code should handle automatically and dynamically reading the keys and attributes and annotations provided on the file. And from that, it should be getting the get ID properly, which is a requirement for how this repository system works. So if I go to the detailed audit, you can see it automatically detected the key is actually a GUID. This is actually the real version. This is just the public override that it builds for developers to, enforce better practices that, hey, we know that it's a GUID. But the way that the objects worked, it's just how behind the scenes MagicEF works. So it handles all that for you, and it properly gives out arguments and errors as it's supposed to. So it's a really cool system that it set this up. And I do this all the time with a nice concrete class automatically created. I can come in here and I can create a new thing that, if I want to say detailed audit, get red flags, and I write my own manual red flags or something, and it returns the ones that I declare are red flags within a date time. I can write that method here. It's a fantastic repository system. So it's a great separation of concern and abilities because, new method, you can just save that. If I run it again, it doesn't matter. Remember, MagicEF will never overwrite anything that you did. What was that? That was a nice error. I thought I tested enough before I did this, but I fixed it. So what I was trying to say is that you can run this as many times as you want, and we'll go back to where I made those changes. It's never going to overwrite anything that it created. That's part of the protocol. It only creates it initially, so if anything changed or updated, do make sure you go back and edit that manually. The goal of it is to create this protocol for you, but once it's done, we don't touch any of the things that you normally touch, right? So the DB models never touch this, ever. That's always going to be overwritten every time you run DB scaffold or the .NET scaffold. And that script that I provided, it combines both MagicEF and .NET scaffolding, because the goal is to pair with the scaffolding, not to replace it. And that goes the same, by the way, for the read-only. Be sure that your read-only is never touched, right? That's why we have a my DB context, and it connects to it, right? Because we never touch the read-only. So anything that's read-only will say that, but other than this file and all the DB models, touch whatever. Like I personally, within the read-only repository base, I personally add a lot of my own fun stuff. For my own custom things, so touch whatever you want. Just because it says read-only doesn't mean read-only. I probably should fix that. But there was reasons for that. Now that I also fixed that error, and this is also why I'm practicing all this to make sure it all goes through correctly. With this CLI app that I created, like I showed before, it automatically creates both the connected, the scaffolded model, and the extension. But we're also able to do this. So whenever you call the repository version, that's actually going to the concrete file. And so this is where you can call any of those repository methods that you created, or we can just go straight to, get all dot where. So the get all, just so you know, that's just getting the iQuery of everything. So yeah, you can just go in there and do whatever you want. So where x is, ID is equal to, whatever. And it's going to return the iQueryable, and I'm sure you're familiar with LINQ if you're doing this, but it helps you with your link to SQL. The wiki will also show a lot of other cool methods, and to show like the full breadth of exactly what it can do, that's another video or that's documented. This is just to show you how to set it up. And really, whenever you make a change to the database, all you got to do, it doesn't matter if you alter a specific table, it doesn't matter if you add something or do whatever, you come here and you just run this. That's it. Now, final note, this is not a video on the migration process. MagicEF actually resolves significant database-first migration processes that exist in a lot of enterprise use cases. I'm using it for my company. It resolved drift. It's actually my more preferred method. I call it database first with code first integration methods. I think that's what I'm going to call it. I don't know. But I like the idea. This protocol will be added to MagicEF in the future. And when I do that, I'll show how to set that up. But I'm just not confident yet enough in it, and I'm constantly changing it. This is a protocol that I use for my company. It's something that I learned from another architect that I wanted to automate it. I wanted to refine it and explore it further because I really liked how he did things. And this was my resolution, and it resolved all my issues when it came to pipeline processes and everything like that, and a lot of the traditional issues that come with database first. So this made database first a truly usable thing across all environments on an enterprise scale, and it's what I prefer, to be honest. Not that it doesn't, not that code first doesn't have its use cases. There's a lot of great use for it, but it makes my life so easy. Whenever I want to run an update, I make anything through the database, guess what? I just run that same command. Because it doesn't matter that it's rerunning the initial commands. It doesn't matter that it's rechecking the helper classes. None of that matters because it knows not to replace anything it's not supposed to. So just be aware of what not to touch. The DB models and the one and only read-only DB context, which, by the way, remember in pipelines to rerun this because you're going to want your read-only DB context through environments to actually change alongside. You want those, how these are connecting for better, use cases. Sometimes an auto-generated, index or name, especially when you're using Azure, that can differ between environments. We have less control than a code first integration method. So that's why this needs to be reran, but that's also why it makes your life so much easier because it handles that and it doesn't touch what it's not supposed to. So hope this helped. Hope you were able to set it up. Should be pretty darn easy. And I was able to work through all the bugs while making this video too. So good luck, and I'm excited to post the migration process that I'll be adding in the future. That's a really interesting idea. That was actually a huge part of this project that is actually missing, and it'll be really exciting when that's done.